welcome to the VET S.O.S. Veteran Entrepreneurial Spotlight. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S. Lifeline. The Veteran Entrepreneurial Spotlight is proud to be affiliated with the Neil Haley Show and sponsored by SpearPoint Solutions. SpearPoint Solutions is a one-stop shop for leading-edge products, services, and training for multiple vendors. From AI training to corporate gifts and much more, they have everything you need to help your organization thrive in the modern economy. Please check out all their valuable offerings at spearpointonline.com. And remember to use the code VET-SOS on anything you purchase there. That will help us continue our mission of improving the lives of those who have served. Today, we're sitting down with Shannon Huffman Polson, who served in the U.S. Army as an Apache pilot. She was one of the first female Apache pilots, and during her service, she led line units around the world. After her service, she earned her MBA at the Tuck School at Dartmouth. I can't say that. I don't know why. And later her MFA. I think I screwed that up last time too. Using her years of experience in the Army and corporate America, Polson founded the Grit Institute, a leadership institute committed to whole leader development. She's the author of The Grit Factor, Courage, Resilience, and Leadership in the Most Male-Dominated Organization in the World, as well as the memoir North of Hope. She also hosts the Grit Factor podcast. She is a community leader and currently lives with her husband and 2 children in Washington State. Fantastic. So good to see you again, Shannon. How are you doing today?
It's great to see you, Sean. I'm doing great, thanks. Always good when I get to talk to you.
I feel like I've butchered your bio both times you've been on here. So
I think you did just great. It's morning. It's Saturday.
This is true. And sometimes the eyes, the mind, and the mouth don't all work together.
That's true. It's very true.
All right. So let's jump right into this. Tell us about your transition out of the military.
Yeah, I think I was fortunate to be transitioning through a 2-year program at the Tuck School at Dartmouth. And it was it was helpful for me because it was a change in the culture, of course, that all of us experience. But being at school for 2 years let me ease into that change, I think, a little bit more, or at least have some space to think about it and to manage it in a different way while I was focusing on learning something else. And I think that focus on learning something else was a really helpful part of making that transition. But I still found it really difficult. I mean, I think even like 3 years out and past business school, I remember talking to my dad, walking down, some street in Seattle where I was working with my coffee and saying, I wonder if I should go back in. There's all this stuff going on. And I remember him saying, Shannon, you did your time, let other people do theirs. And that was actually really helpful for me to hear. And knowing that, the Army goes on without you, for sure. It's designed that way the moment you leave. And that there's other things in the world that we're meant to do and places we're meant to contribute.
And for anybody who's listening who thinks they're so important that the Army can't go on without them, trust us. Trust Shannon. It goes on without you. You're fine. Go take your leave. Go retire.
It won't miss you.
You are fine.
That's right.
Oh my goodness gracious. That was one of my pet peeves when I was in. It's just like I can't take leave. Yes, you can. We're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you can't, then something's not working in the organization, right? Like it's designed to be able to work without you. That's how it's got to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So you told us a little bit about your pathway to become an entrepreneur. Was there a bug that was always there? What really, drove you to want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I don't know. I always have. I mean, it's funny because the Army, of course, is the exact antithesis of this, right? But it's service. It's service of something beyond ourselves. And all of your listeners understand that really, really well. I think there's another part of me that's always wanted to do things on my own. And in some regards, I've always wanted to be a writer. So writing is a big piece of my work. And speaking is a big piece of my work, which I hadn't expected it to be, but I've always enjoyed. And so I think that that piece that always wanted to create in the world, entrepreneurial ventures are about creation. You're creating something new. And I think that's always been a part of who I was. And I wouldn't necessarily have understood the way that it would manifest. And I think that's something that's also pretty cool for all your listeners is when you do the work to start to figure out, like, what are your values? What are the things that matter to you? The way that it manifests might be something quite different than what you ever really even imagined or anything that you've ever thought of. And that's great because there are different ways to find those values and that meaning in the world. So I probably have always had it. I think writing itself, of course, is an act of creation, but in a sense, the journey of being an author is being an entrepreneur because you essentially, and a lot of authors don't realize that, and it takes a long time to kind of figure that out, but you put everything you have into this thing that's a creation, but it's a creation and then it becomes a product to other people. And then you have to think about that like a business and say, okay, how do I make sure that this product gets to as many people as it can get to? Because I think it'll change their lives. And as long as you believe in it, that's a pretty exciting part of the game.
Writing a book is a different experience altogether. I've been in the process for a while, and it's like I have my times where I'm flowing. I have my times where I'm, not doing a whole lot, it just working
Yeah.
through that whole thing. And, but no, I can definitely see what you're saying there, and it becomes its own product. And essentially you're an entrepreneur at that point, trying to get your product in the hands of people and to help them. And,
Yeah. And
so.
Sean, your question too on what that journey looks like. I really started out in corporate America, so that was obviously not entrepreneurial either. There are entrepreneurial opportunities within that context of those larger systems. But when I left to write my first book, I didn't think that I was leaving to do entrepreneurial work, but that's really what that was. And then that developed from the release of that first book when I started to speak and started to talk to organizations and started to realize, hey, there was a hunger, there was a need for the experience, not just that I had, but that I had then researched from other people's experiences and done the background research in psychology and management and leadership and all of those different things. And that if I could find a way to package that in a way that would be meaningful in people's lives, that there was a real hunger for that and a real need for that. And I think that hunger and that need for that remains today. We're in, as everybody knows, times that are chaotic no matter where you fall on the spectrum. And with that, people are looking for that leadership and they're looking for that not consistency, but that kind of that guiding voice, right? And so I think there was an opportunity there when I started doing the work in the writing and the speaking that really turned into the Leadership Institute ultimately because of what people wanted. And that's what you kind of have to see is, what do I do well? What do I love to do? And what are people really looking for?
Absolutely. You gotta, identify and fill those gaps. And, I think you've done it absolutely beautifully.
Yeah.
So what's been the best and the worst part about being an entrepreneur?
The best part is really feeling like what I create makes change in people's lives and seeing that it has marked influence, right? And that it makes people's lives better. Ideally, you're making people's lives better, right? Not just influencing them in any way, which is amazing. And honestly, I wouldn't trade that for anything. The hard part about it all as an entrepreneur, and again, your listeners will relate to this, is you don't always know, like, what does the next half a year look like, right? It's not planned out. There's not a lot of security. There's not stock options. There aren't, healthcare plans built in. So you have to do all of that work on your own to try to make sure that that's a solvent option for yourself and for your family. And so that part is, it can get sketchy. And there are times when, like, I'll come to the end of a year and I'll be like, my gosh, I have like nothing booked next year. It's crazy. And then it all fills up, like the calendar fills, but you just sort of have to trust the process of it and make sure, of course, that you've planned well. So if you have a great year or a great 6 months, make sure you're saving, make sure you're planning for, hey, maybe the next 6 months might be kind of quiet. We don't know. But you just don't know until you get things really established where you have either ongoing clients or something that's continuous enough that you can depend on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more planning you can put into it and the better prepared you can be for those lulls. That's big. All right. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I just think it's an important thing to reiterate is, like, if you have a phenomenal year, don't go all out in your lifestyle, right? Like, you just keep it tight and keep focused on the purpose of the work, which is what, like, life is all about, right? Finding that work that's meaningful. You've done that in so many different ways. I mean, it's amazing what you do, Sean, with all of your podcasts and this entire empire that you've built. But stay focused on that work, and the lifestyle thing should take a backseat.
Empire. I haven't heard that term in a while.
Hey, well, I mean, you kind of do, right? You've got like multiple podcasts. You've got this whole thing going on, and that's not even your day job.
Yes, this is true. This is still just a passion project that we're trying to convert. So, yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
All right, so entrepreneurial programs. Did you participate in anything that sort of helped you build your business?
I did not, but I have been in business. I think I was interesting. I think of the military actually as some great training ground for parts of it, not for all of it. I did go to business school, right? So, and then I worked in the corporate world. So I think in some regards, those are training programs, and I went through training programs as part of those opportunities. So that, in a sense, is 6 or 7 years of exposure, not to entrepreneurial work in particular, but to some of the specifics of business and how to think about things, and that's was certainly helpful. There's no question about it. I think the other part of it was, and continues to be, and I teach this in the courses at the Grit Institute too, is whatever part of your life it is that you're developing or you're struggling with or you're working on getting better at, is looking for the people that can come alongside, right? Or that you can reach out to and say, hey, can I just, make sure you do your work in advance. I think that's really, really key. But then you reach out and say, hey, I've done this and this and this, and I have this specific question. Do you have any ideas or recommendations or thoughts? And you'll find people are incredibly generous when you are at that place. I will say I have joined a program recently, even though I've been doing this now for a while, that is very, very good at working with entrepreneurs. And I'm really grateful for their guidance and their direction, for sure.
You able to share that?
Yeah, sure. And I can give you a code for that as well. It's Brand Builders Group.
Okay.
And it's definitely an investment. It's for a particular kind of entrepreneur. I think it's not necessarily if you were starting a new coffee company or something. I'm not sure if it would be as useful, but in my space, it's very, very useful. And I'll give you a link, Sean, to put in the show notes. And
Okay.
That would be, I know it's been helpful for me even 10 years into the process.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Grit Institute. What are you actually doing with this?
Great question. I'll tell you, Sean, the backstory just for your listeners. I invented the Grit Institute on an airplane on the way to record on the Today Show because I needed something. Like I needed something that was behind me. So I literally just made the website with the domain and threw it up there. And that's kind of the genesis. But the real genesis really was, of course, starting the process of writing, starting the process of speaking, realizing that there are many different ways to provide value to my clients and that they needed me to be able to provide value in different ways. So one of those ways, of course, are the books. One of those ways is speaking and doing keynotes. One of those ways is providing training. So I have online training at the Grit Institute in both grit and resilience. This is all leadership focused, of course, but in a very holistic sort of a way. Based on the framework of the Grit Triad that developed in the writing of the Grit Factor. And then another one called Leading with Purpose. And that's actually a course that is the full course of what I teach at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth twice a year as part of their executive education program. So I'm really proud of both of them. They're great. They're both 6-week asynchronous programs. You have a VET S.O.S code for all of your listeners to have a 50% discount. I want this to reach vets. I really, really do. And then there's also another program for high school and young adults. And they can take the regular asynchronous program, but if there is a facilitated group that is either an advisory group at school or maybe it's a leadership course, it's a 6-week program for them as well with a facilitator's guide that even an unskilled facilitator can manage. And I'm really proud of all 3 of those courses. I know that they have changed people's lives, and that's the beginning of developing something that was needed for clients. And I continue to do that today with workshops and other types of things.
That's fantastic. And yeah, I love hearing you talk about it because the passion just comes out. You can see in your smile and your eyes and everything how much you love what you're doing, and that's just fantastic. So tell us the best place for the audience to connect with you and to learn more about the Grit Institute.
Yeah, thank you. The best place is really the website, thegritinstitute.com. You can sign up for the newsletter. It's a Substack. It's called facingthewind.substack.com. And I am on Instagram at Shannon H. Polson and at the Grit Institute, as well as on LinkedIn. So would love to see you in any of those places.
Fantastic. Oh, always a pleasure sitting down and talking with you, Shannon. Love the work you're doing, and definitely looking forward to continuing to talk and hear about your amazing journey. We want to thank you for joining us on VET S.O.S today, and on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S family, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. You can find VET S.O.S podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, all social media platforms, and make sure to subscribe and follow VET S.O.S so you don't miss anything. And of course, remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.